I was born at Shumpert, and I'm always reminded by my dad that he had to do his taxes on April the 15th, and then he had to take my mother to the hospital on the 16th to have child number 2. I'm 2 of 5. My dad was an attorney, and he was in the Navy during World War II, and he was on a minesweeper out in the Pacific. And when the war was over, his minesweeper boat had to come all the way to Hawaii, to San Diego, and they came back through the Panama Canal, and he wanted to jump off the boat and swim to LSU because he knew he was going to go to LSU Law School, but instead the boat had to go all the way back up the East Coast, go to New York. He gets off, takes a train home, and he went to LSU Law School. And he graduated at a time when you did not have to take the bar exam. So you graduated, he drove home and hung out a shingle and started practicing law. And so he practiced from 1949 until just a couple of years ago. He's still alive, he's 94. He practiced well into his 80s. He had, I would say that he was probably the last of the general practitioners. He could do anything. And I was lucky to practice law with him, and I learned to do anything when I was practicing. I am a product of the public school system here in Shreveport, Louisiana. I went to South Highlands Elementary School. This was before it was a magnet school. Anybody could get in then, but I went to South Highlands, and then I went to Uri Drive Junior High School. And then I had a really unusual experience when I went to high school. A new high school was built here in Shreveport, and it was built in a cotton field way out Kings Highway, and it was named Captain Shreve High School. And I was in the first class that went all the way through Captain Shreve. Back then high school was 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. So we were among the people who were outside when the first bell rang, and we walked into this pristine school. So I graduated from Captain Shreve High School in 1970. So after that I went to LSU. I majored in history, and then I went to LSU Law School. I had always worked for my father in the summers, and I wanted to be a lawyer from the time that I worked for him in the summers. And so that was just always something that I wanted to do with my life, and so I tried to do well in college so I'd have good grades, and then I was fortunate that I came from a family that they could afford to send me to law school. I didn't have a student debt, but I just always wanted to be a lawyer because my father was a lawyer. But I do remember when I was in the 7th grade and we were taking a civics class, you had to write a paper on what you thought you would be when you grew up. And my paper was, well, I always thought I would be a legal secretary, because that was the mindset when I was little and grown up. You didn't have any female lawyers. I mean, there just weren't any. And so from the time I was in the 7th grade to when I got out of high school, things changed and more females were going to law school. I met my husband David at the Xerox machine at law school. Young people don't even know what Xerox machines are. That's the copier. So he and I were on the law review together too. So we met in law school. We got married in December of our senior year. And we got married here in Shreveport up at Holy Trinity Catholic Church. And I just had to laugh. This week I moved my office at the Court of Appeal, and my view from my window is Holy Trinity Catholic Church. So I'm laughing because I brought a picture of my husband and me standing on the steps of Holy Trinity, and now I'm looking at that every day. My husband and I were both very lucky. I got a job clerking for Justice James L. Dennis on the Louisiana Supreme Court. My husband David got a job working for Justice John Dixon on the Louisiana Supreme Court. So after we took the bar exam in the summer of '77, we loaded up our U-Haul and we moved to the big city of New Orleans. I learned a lot working for Judge Dennis, and I'll say this about Judge Dennis: the man is a workaholic. And we worked often 7 days a week, and he wanted to know on any legal issue that we had, you had to tell him what every court in Louisiana had done on a legal issue. Then he wanted to know what other states did, and then he wanted to know what other countries did. So, and he never had his mind made up about what the outcome of the case could be until everything had been thoroughly researched and massaged and all that. And he was a very thoughtful, brilliant person. But I've never worked so hard as I worked that year down there. Judge Dixon, for whom David worked, was very decisive. After that, we moved to Shreveport, and I got a job working for Judge Bolin at the Second Circuit. He was the chief judge, and he got 2 law clerks. And so he had a career clerk, Gail Ponce, and she wanted to retire, and he was looking for somebody. So I go from this high-stress work environment where we worked, and let me back up. When I clerked at the Supreme Court, they had original criminal jurisdiction in all cases. Now you go to the Court of Appeal. It wasn't that way back then. Every criminal defendant that got convicted in a trial, it got appealed directly to the Supreme Court. So we had all the civil and all the criminal. Well, when I came to Shreveport, where the Court of Appeal was headquartered, all they had were the civil cases. And so it was a much slower pace and far less stress. Plus, Judge Bolin had 2 law clerks. So that's where I met Randall Fish. He was the other law clerk. So back then, the Second Circuit was on the 6th floor of the Caddo Parish Courthouse because they didn't have as many judges as they have now. So I worked there for about 8 months, and then an interesting thing happened. There was going to be a district attorney's race here in Caddo Parish. And Paul Carmouche, who had originally worked for the DA, he left there to start the Caddo Parish Public Defender's Office. He wanted to run for DA. Well, it doesn't look good for a criminal defense attorney to be running for DA, so he needed to get back to the DA's office. So he resigned his position at the Public Defender's Office, goes back to the DA, and so they're a little bit short-handed. So the new head of the Public Defender's Office came and asked Judge Bolin if he would allow me to leave my clerkship early so I could go work for the Public Defender's Office, because they knew that I knew about criminal law, having worked at the Supreme Court. So Judge Bolin was very gracious about that, and so off I went to the Public Defender's Office. And when you walk in there, they go, here's 300 files, go to court, figure out how to do it. Both of my boys are U.S. Navy SEALs. My son John, he went to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, and he got one of the few SEAL spots designated for officers, or a shot at becoming a SEAL. So he made it through all that, and he has been in the SEALs since he got out of the Naval Academy in 2003, so what's that, 14 years he's been a Navy SEAL. And actually this necklace that I have on, I wear this a lot to make me think about my children. This is their trident, okay, and my son gave me this, and I wear it whenever I think I have a problem. I feel this, I go, you don't know what a problem is, because I hadn't been to war like they have. But anyway, my younger son Patrick, while John was deployed the first time, it was over in Iraq, our son Patrick tells my husband and me that he has joined the Navy and he's going to be a Navy SEAL too. And my husband and I go, you did what? And off he went, so he goes to basic training, and sure enough, he became a Navy SEAL. And had he not passed all that stuff, he'd be on a ship somewhere right now doing heaven knows what. But at the end of 1982, I went into private practice with my father. And so the name of our law firm was Giddens & Garrett, a professional law corporation. Our law office was conveniently located at 610 Milam Street in downtown Shreveport. The building has now been torn down as yet another parking lot downtown. But I practiced with him from 1982 until January 1 of 2003, when I got sworn in as a judge. I decided to run for judge in the spring of 2002. I heard that Judge Gene Bryson was going to be retiring, and I just decided that I thought that it would be helpful to to have on the bench someone who had run a business and had practiced law. Nothing against DAs, but I was tired of trying cases in front of judges who'd come out of the DA's office and didn't know anything about property, lemon law, wills, this and that and the other. And I just thought we needed some regular lawyers on the bench. And the other thing was, I thought that we needed some more women on the bench. So I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I decided I would run for judge. I spent 2 or 3 years at first on the criminal bench, and then I was lucky and got to go to the civil bench because I did a trade with Judge Scott Creighton. He'd been on the civil bench. He wanted to go to criminal for a while, so we switched seat assignments. And so my second week on the civil bench, I find out that I'm getting ready to start a prescription hearing in one of these toxic tort cases involving over 100 plaintiffs. Jerry Edwards was my law clerk when I had the prescription hearing. But that was kind of a shock, going through all that, but that was trial by fire, got through that. And I'm really, one case that I'll always remember is that silicosis case. Serving on the Court of Appeal is completely different from serving on the district court. The district court is where the sausage is made. The Court of Appeal, you read a cold record, and it's a lot of research and a lot of reading, and it's just night and day. And quite frankly, I was not prepared for it's a very isolating job, and I'm a people person, I'm an extrovert. And where I work now, some of the judges have satellite offices in their hometowns, so we don't have, all the judges aren't there all the time. So it's an isolating experience. But I love the people that I work with. I have a very nice legal assistant. I have 2 law clerks, which is a luxury for me. But I had something very interesting happen to me after I got elected to the Court of Appeal. I did not know I had it, but I had hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which is that illness that the football players get who drop dead. I did not know that I had it. I've always been a very healthy person who worked out, and it just came as a shock to me that I had this condition. So I wound up having to have open heart surgery in February of 2016 at the Mayo Clinic up in Rochester, Minnesota. And so all I can say is, thank you, Lord, for letting me be at the Court of Appeal during all this, because I don't know that I would have been able to keep up the pace at the first JDC as I recuperated from the surgery. The Red Mass is an event that's put on the first Friday in May up at Holy Trinity Catholic Church. And it's designed for us to get together and pray for judges and lawyers. And it was started 25 years ago here in Shreveport by Larry Petit and Don Miller, who's now deceased, and Pastor Brady Blade. And it's a very nice event, and I had to be chairperson of it one year, and that was the year we had Cardinal Egan from New York come down to be with us, and he gave the homily. And we had a dinner for him out at Eastridge Country Club, and his plane was late, and we got word that he wasn't going to show up. But he did show up, and I had to introduce him and do all that, and I left my cell phone in my purse, and I had the purse under the podium where Cardinal Egan was giving his speech, and my phone started ringing, and I thought, oh no, and it was my bug man calling me to tell me he was going to be at my house the next day, and it rang, and it rang, and it rang, and it rang, and the Cardinal's looking at my phone, and I'm just, oh, whatever, I'm so embarrassed that this happened. I want to be remembered as a good child. I want to be remembered as a good mother to my 2 boys. I'm very proud of my boys. I don't think there are a lot of people out there who have 2 Navy SEALs who are sons, and I'm really proud of what they've done. So I want to be remembered as a good wife to my husband David. We've been married almost 41 years. He's just my best friend. And I want to be remembered as a good lawyer, and I hope I'm remembered as a good judge because I've tried really hard.